Surface preparation isn't the most exciting part of a project, but it's critical if you want the end results to look good. I've been working on these curved front cabinets, and it's given me an opportunity to use these Grit Grip dual-sided sanding pads, and they've been awesome. As the name implies, these pads have sandpaper on both sides with a layer of padding in between them. They have just the right amount of flexibility to allow me to sand the curved surfaces without distorting the shape or unintentionally rounding over the edges. The sandpaper is extremely durable and lasts far longer than a folded sheet of paper. For those times when you want a stiff sanding block, you can attach the pads to these grit blocks and you're ready to go. Let me show you a few of the many applications for these Grit Grip sanding pads. I'm preparing these curved drawer fronts for veneering. I've flush trimmed the walnut edging and I want to make sure the edging is perfectly flush. The flexibility of the Grit Grip pad allows me to sand the curve without changing its shape. I keep most of my pressure on the plywood so I don't roll over the edge. I can do the same thing on the outside, making sure I get right into the corners. In addition to curved drawers, the cabinets have curved legs which need to be sanded after they are shaped. The pads are flexible enough to conform to the curve, but they're also rigid enough that I'm not likely to tip over the edges and distort the shape. As with the rest of the project, I'm sanding up to P180, and then I'm using this same pad to break all of the sharp edges. And this works really well, very quick, just to remove, as I said, those sharp edges. Having sandpaper on both sides gives twice the life for these pads, and it also means that I've got perfect grip with my fingers so that the sandpaper doesn't slip and I can get pressure just where I need it, like I am on this curved front drawer. So once I'm done sanding the face, I can use the sandpaper, the same pad, to just soften this edge a little bit so that it's not quite as sharp, and I can do the same here. It's got enough rigidity that I can round over that edge just the slightest amount as I need. I'll switch to the grit block to sand this top edge so that I maintain a flat surface. The sandpaper has just enough flex that it will conform to the shape of the inside of this drawer as well, and since the sandpaper goes right to the edge of the paper, of the pad, I can sand right to the edge as well. So, very useful. Knock off this corner, and I'm just about ready to spray these drawer fronts. The pads are so useful that I keep them all over my shop. Here I'm using them to sand the faces of the Fritz and Franz jigs that I make. These are machined out of poplar, and that gets a bit fuzzy coming off the router. So a quick sand with these half-size Grit Grip pads and they're ready to go. As a wooden pen turner, these half-size Grit Grip pads are ideal for sanding the wooden blanks. I've got grits from 180 up to 1000 ready to go. I start with the lathe running to sand away any unevenness in the blank, and I also make sure that the ends of the blank are even with the bushings. I then turn the lathe off and sand lengthwise to remove any cross-grain scratches. I work my way up the grits all the way to 1000 before I apply the finish. As a bowl turner, the 80 grit pads are perfect to smooth out any imperfections in the bowl and to eliminate tear out. On the outside, I use a grit block with the pad so I get a smooth and continuous curve. Grit Grip pads are available up to 3000 grit, which will leave a beautiful surface with an oil finish. On the inside, I use the half-size pads, and they conform perfectly to the shape of the bowl. The pads are very durable and do not tear. They are made from wet dry paper, so you can wet sand if you want.